Guess what, everybody? CNN just released an article entitled Want to Understand the 2020 Democratic Primary? Stay off of Twitter. Now, full disclosure, I just saw this. I saw the title and I said, oh, I can't read this by myself. I gotta have a family with me. We gotta sit down around the dinner table and we gonna read this together because you know that this is about to be hilarious. I mean, anytime CNN has the nerve to try and explain to us how to understand the outcome of a presidential election, you know it's going to be good because not only are they always wrong, they're hilariously wrong. Like, it is not even close. Remember, Bernie Sanders doesn't really have a chance to win, you know? Hillary Clinton has a 99% chance of winning the election. The election was stolen by the Russians. I mean, basically, if being wrong about the outcome of elections was a batting average, then they're batting 1,000 on being wrong. They're not batting 1,000 on being right. They're batting 1,000 on being wrong. I mean, still a perfect record. Keep it up, CNN. I'm sure this isn't going to be any different. So, the article starts off by saying, poll of the week. A new CNN national poll, which have always been so reliable, people. But a new CNN national poll of the 2020 Democratic presidential primary gives Joe Biden, who hasn't even announced, 28%. Bernie Sanders, who is the unequivocal frontrunner, I don't think anybody can really debate that, 20%, except for CNN. They'll try to. Well, I should say they can't successfully debate that. Anyway, Kamala Harris, 12%. That's better. I thought she would be. Beto O'Rourke, 11%, and Elizabeth Warren, 6%. Other polling confirms that Biden is ahead of Sanders, and both of them are well ahead of the pack. Now, once again, if this is the CNN poll that we last covered, which I believe it is, matter of fact, we can check right now because they decided to link the poll into this article. So this is the SRSS poll. This is the poll that put Biden ahead of Sanders while only questioning people that were over 50 years old. And even still, Biden isn't that far ahead of Sanders within the mark. Like, it's like a 4% margin of error. So, like, in reality, Biden is way closer to Bernie and uncomfortably close to Bernie than what people might believe. We know the truth, but just to put that into context. And they say other polling confirms that Biden is ahead of Sanders, and both of them are well ahead of the pack. Goes on to say, what's the point? Well, if you go on social media platforms like Twitter, a second home for many journalists, you'd be shocked to learn that Biden was the front runner in the polling so far. Fans of other candidates, especially Sanders, make their presence known quite loudly and can leave you left wondering if the polling is missing something. Like the entire millennial vote, maybe? Could it possibly be missing that? What is going on in this article already? It just started. And I already want to rage quit. It goes on to say, my advice, be very, very careful in looking at Twitter or other social media to understand who is ahead or who is behind in the Democratic race. The dividing lines in the Democratic primary are such that they expose social media's weaknesses in accurately capturing the sentiment of the Democratic electorate. Age is one of the biggest indicators in whom the Democrats are choosing in the primary right now. A CNN poll finds. What? Oh my God. For instance, that Sanders leads Biden by 32% to 19% amongst those who are younger than 45. The same poll showed that Biden with 36% and Sanders at 8% amongst 45 or older. The problem is that social media skews young. I examined 3 Pew Research Center polls from 2016 to 2018 and looked at Democrats who said they used Twitter. On average, they were 18 points more likely to say they were under the age of 50 than the overall population who said that they were Democrats in the same polling. That's a large enough difference to account for Biden's lead in the CNN's poll. What? Oh my God, it gets even better. Huh. Whoa, baby Jesus. The age gap also helps to partially explain why social media seemed very skewed towards Sanders in the 2016 primary. The age gap, I thought it was Russian bots. That's what we were told. So now it's the age gap. Okay. That year, Sanders won the younger than 45 vote by 26 points in the average state exit polling. The state exit polling that was only existent until we found out that they were using it to convince us of rigged outcomes, and then they stripped us of the ability to see any type of exit polling. I don't know if you all recall that, but that's what happened. So we don't even know if that was accurate because we found out, obviously, I wouldn't say they were found guilty, but I would say they're found guilty by omission. Like, if the polling is accurate, why remove exit polling when we're questioning it and saying, hey, if exit polling is 2% off, federal law says you must, what is it? You have to, you can't register the elections. It's legally, you're supposed to challenge the election and conduct a recount. Oh, actually, no, you're supposed to conduct an entire, either a recount or a re-election, depending on the state, if exit polling is 2% off. These exit polls 4, 5, 6, 7% off in some cases. And instead of acknowledging this, they shut the polling down. So there you go. Hillary Clinton, on the other hand, won those 45 years old and older by 32 points, with a lot of help from absentee ballots that seemingly 99% went to Hillary Clinton, because that's 100% feasible. But let's continue. And it says that, and because of those 45 years old and older made up of 60% of the primary Democratic electorate, she won the nomination handily over Sanders. In other words, Twitter basically takes 3-2 advantage. Democrats 45 years old and older have over those who are 45 and under the in the makeup of the Democratic primary voters, and reverses it to make a 3-2 advantage for the Democrats younger than 45. That's a bunch of word salads. Okay. I don't even know where to start with this nonsensical malarkey. Let's talk about this poll. How are you going to start out by saying this Twitter? You can't go to Twitter because it skews towards the younger generation, which I don't think that's an unfair assessment. It does skew towards the younger generation. But let's be very clear about something. You can't say that we can't trust the Twitter analysis of what the Democratic primary is looking like, but because of the age problem, and then say, but here's our CNN poll explaining to you why Biden is ahead, and we only question people who are 50 and older. So you can trust us instead. Really? Really? Because that makes complete and total sense. It doesn't contradict anything you just said in your analysis at all. Okay. So on its face, that argument it destroys itself. But then he goes on to say Biden is the front runner. Like, it's one thing if you're just casually saying don't trust Twitter but trust CNN polls, but then you're gonna go out and say, hey, like, candidly and matter of factly, that Biden is absolutely the front runner based off polling that is skewed to benefit people in his age range. Now, I also want to talk about the fact that he goes on to discuss the whole Hillary Clinton won handedly because of the electorate, quote unquote Democratic electorate being more in favor, or the older Democratic electorate being more in favor of Hillary Clinton. Let's be very clear about something. We don't know how true that is. Like, I would say if she did have an advantage over Bernie Sanders in that regard, it would be a very, very slight one. But when I say we don't know what that is at large, is because, well, absentee ballots were being thrown in her direction. I mean, there was lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit about the lawsuit discussing this. This isn't a settled matter. You can't pretend like this is an absolute fact and like there aren't still court cases that are trying to hold the Democratic Party and specifically Hillary Clinton and all the people who assisted her accountable for the rigging that she likely got away with. You can't pretend like that's not a thing. Although once again, CNN will try to pretend like it didn't happen, but we really do not know like how much of an advantage Hillary ultimately had over Bernie when it comes to the older base. Speaking of which, I love this part where they say that all because like that's what I say. Hillary Clinton, on the other hand, won those 45 years old and older by 32 points. And because those 45 years old and older made up 60% of the Democratic primary electorate, she won the nomination handedly over to Sanders. Now, when they say the Democratic primary electorate, I'm curious. Because are you saying people who are Democrats or people who voted in a Democratic primary? Because all the polls that he's talking about and every other situation, he's framed around the Democratic electorate specifically. And it's highly likely that he's talking about the Democratic Party. Now, once again, they have an advantage over Bernie potentially in the Democratic Party. But when it comes to independents that Bernie tried to bring in and did successfully in some states before they were promptly kicked out by the Democratic Party via registration drops and other things. Once again, how much of an advantage did Bernie Sanders did Hillary Clinton actually have? We can never trying to analyze, like if you're going to try to use numbers to analyze just how much of an advantage or a disadvantage either Bernie or Hillary had in that particular election, you can't do it. No matter how you try to analyze the numbers are faulty. Court case upon court case is still a lot. It's like trying to analyze the numbers when it comes to Hillary and Trump, how people always say, well, Hillary clearly won the popular vote. And they also are unaware of the fact that Jill Stein has multiple court cases. One that was won saying, actually, we thought she won the popular vote, but in some of the largest counties, in some of the largest cities in the country, Hillary Clinton, like the cities that would have favored Hillary, there was rigging afoot. It's still being deliberated in what cities. If it was found, like, so for example, right now there's a lawsuit in Wayne County where like over half the votes were irreconcilable. Pennsylvania now has to use paper ballots, hand counted paper ballots because of Jill Stein's lawsuit, because they found out that once again, rigging had taken place and the rigging favored Hillary Clinton because they were in her precincts. If you know anything about politics and precincts, if the precinct is Democratic, then Democrats are running the show. That's how it works. You know, you can have a Republican or two or a conservative or two sprinkled in there as like a polling observer, a poll watcher. But the Democrats control the district. The Democrats will control the outcome of that district. So once again, when we combine all the facts that we know, like they said that Bernie had almost zero chance. Like, I won't say zero chance of winning Iowa. When I say that, I mean like he was going to win like 15 to 20% in Iowa. That's what they had been saying literally until the day of the Iowa caucus. That was totally untrue, as you all remember. The exit polling was extremely inaccurate. And because we called them out on this, they took the exit polling down, and yet the same article is going to attempt to use exit polling to justify its fallacious analysis. I mean, we can be purposely obtuse all day, but let's be very clear about something. The reason they're saying don't go to Twitter, even though Twitter does skew young, you can't say, let's not go to social media to find out who's organizing and how many people are are around them and working with them, and who are also organizers, who also have a large following, who are also voting the way that that organizer tells them. So like if you're an organizer and you have a large following, you're going to try to tell me that that doesn't make, like, so MoveOn.org. They tweeted out the other day that they will hold anybody who takes any money from AIPAC and goes to the AIPAC conference accountable, because their support base does not like AIPAC or Bibi Netanyahu because of all the human rights atrocities. So what does that mean? It means that they're about to have a huge outcome on the election if they decide to start going after candidates over AIPAC. You're trying to tell me that isn't going to affect like the quote unquote Vegas odds on who has the best chance to win now? Because now Kamala's going to take a hit because she did just meet with AIPAC. Like, I don't understand how you're going to tell people you can't understand what's going on in politics by not being on Twitter. Like, the reason that so many journalists are on Twitter, like, mainstream media literally reacts to the narratives that are on Twitter to try and shut those narratives down, not because they aren't effective, not because they aren't true, but because they are absolutely true and they don't want the truth to get out. The reason that someone, if they did have a legitimate and a large advantage amongst the older Democratic electorate, is because, like I said in my last video critiquing the CNN poll trying to claim that Bernie Sanders was falling in popularity, it's because they only watch CNN. And they're like, the CNN's main audience is at the average age of 60 years old. Average age of 60 years old. And who do they always talk about? The Bidens of the world, the Hillary Clintons of the world. Who they rarely talk about? The Bernies of the world, the Tulsis of the world. And when they finally do talk about the Bernies of the world and the Tulsis of the world, it's to attack them. It's to engage in an all-out onslaught against their progressive policies and make them ridicule them and make them seem like their policies aren't feasible and like they aren't actually popular. And they're telling you that social media isn't the play. Like, we just shouldn't be trying to determine the outcome of the election there, despite the fact that Bernie used it quite successfully and Obama invested millions into social media because it did determine the outcome of an election. Okay? No, you can't 100% rely on social media, but for you to say, well, there's a 10% difference in the age of the people who engage on social media and then the people who don't engage on social media, like, and there's a 10% difference or a 10-point difference, a 10-point difference on the outcome because of that. Like, really? So you're telling me, even if you were right and you said that the older group swing 60% in favor of a Joe Biden, we're going to pretend like 40% isn't important? Because once again, a lot of independents are brought into that 40% that these polls don't account for. Almost all these polls are talking about the Democratic electorate, not the electorate in its entirety. Like, where in states like North Carolina, which is a semi-closed primary, you can vote for either party, no matter if you're independent or otherwise. And many states have open primaries. So how is, like, this entire analysis is ridiculous. And I just had to read it with you all because I knew when I saw the title, I was going to be like, oh my God, this is going to be good. And it didn't disappoint, of course. You know what? What's this guy? Oh, what a surprise. It's our friend, Harry Enton, the guy who told us that Bernie Sanders was dropping in popularity. This guy really sucks at politics. I'm sure that degree in journalism prepared him for political analysis, clearly. Like, he is thoroughly prepared to discuss analysis and numbers and the primary. He is proving his worth to CNN. Harry, stay off of politics. Leave that to the people who know how to read, you know? Like, because this is your second that I've seen. This is your second piece that is just utterly ridiculous. And you're using the same flawed polls to draw the conclusion in this piece as you did to draw the conclusion in the Bernie Sanders hit piece where you say he was falling in popularity. Just stay off of politics, dog. If you want to smear him by twisting stories and things like that, do that. But political analysis is not your thing. Just stop. Just stop. Thanks for watching that segment of Mika Says Sukasa. Don't forget to join us on Roku and catch our Roku exclusives. Also, help us reach our goal of 500 patrons on Patreon. You can also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and JustNForm.com. But more than anything else, always remember, find your balance. Peace.